Today we're focusing on the king art and archetype. And this is a Carolyn Mace card of the king with the light attributes being enlightened, benevolent leadership, benefiting those in charge. And the shadow, as all archetypes are neither good nor bad, nor gender related, but have the light and shadow aspects, shadow being excessive feelings of entitlement and rulership without restraint. So I actually have a royal box of fabrics that I have kind of set aside. So I quickly looked at these, and I didn't really see anything that I was totally keen on. I wanted to start with some kind of fabric that was very textural, as in like velvety, and I have this beautiful turquoise velvet, and then I have this, which is a textural velvet taffeta. But then I also love the coloring of this, which is green and aquas, which is really pretty. To try to create some time hack, I also have this wonderful castle. And of course that would represent the domain of the king. And it's by Stamperia, and I got this at Artistic Artifacts, which happily delivers. So I think I'm going to go ahead and fuse this castle and then see where it wants to belong. Okay, I have fused this, and let me see how this fits here. The colors are really nice with that. Now, of course, the king has authority over the land, and the king is also born into power. There's a birthright, an entitlement component to king, as well as there's legacy, that the king exerts his influence and is meant to have offspring, and that the king continues to live on. The king also sets the law. The law is really that coming from the divine. It's a cosmic law. I thought I would really like that, but for some reason I'm not feeling it. So I'm going back over here. This certainly has the lavish and the gold and the shimmer, which I think of with jewels. So then it's a matter of looking at how to place this. I think it might be something like that. There's also certainly that fertility aspect of the king, and that is the divine act of creation. And of course, I'm always looking at how does the archetype intersect with art making. So assuming artists have the artist archetype, but they have other archetypes as well, how do they exponentially interact? I also have this beautiful kind of jeweled piece, and I can't help but see that that goes somewhere. Ooh-wee, look how pretty that is. You know what though? I think I want a circle to kind of create an orb. I'll have to see if I have enough room. I have this whole box of circles. It's not bad. Just not sure that that's really going to be big enough. So, do I have something in between? I might have to find something. So one thing I've noticed in making this already is that I have made some decisions, and that's exactly what the king does. The king often makes decisions having had the counsel of the trusted court, those advisors that provide insight and wisdom, because the king knows that the king's decisions will affect the realm But I've already recognized that I want to have this particular piece probably covering a canvas so that it will be wall mounted. So in order to do that, I had to reattach the piece that I had cut off because it was too small. I wouldn't have had the amount that needs to drape over. And then I had to back this piece because it's so flimsy. I made a bigger circle because that's where the castle's gonna go. And I've tried to outline it because I have decided that I want to use all those beautiful jewels that I have on that one piece. So I can just barely see the outline of the circle. That's where the jewels are gonna go. So this is gonna go in here. And then I've fused all of this, and now I'm going to cut it apart. So in terms of king is either benevolent and for the people, or the king is corrupt and out for himself. Remember, there's not gender related, but the king does have a certain masculine and warrior-like quality to it. And when the king is acting for himself and coming from a place of ego, then that's a really fear-based king filled with paranoia. Whereas if the king is acting benevolently and for the people, the king is acting out of love. And when I think of symbols that relate to the king, orb is definitely one of them. That's why I wanted to do a circle here. And an orb is that it represents a couple of things. The orb represents the fact that the monarch's symbol actually comes from the divine. That's why the king wears a crown, and that's actually wearing the crown on the crown chakra. So again, that direct relationship between heaven and earth. Now, remembering that all archetypes have light and shadow, the shadow aspect is that the king is a tyrant or a weakling. In that case, then the king is actually a passive king rather than the powerful king. And in the shadow, that king is just distrustful of the people around him, very fearful, afraid that people are going to kill him off, kill off his offspring. The king in this position is very narcissistic. It's all about the king. He's not the great protector of the people. He's not interested in the greater good. But in the light, the king understands that the more that the power is shared, then the more exponential the power becomes. And the kingdom expands, the people flourish, there's good bounty. King is the protector of the domain, the protector of the people. And I kind of think when an artist has a king archetype also, and comes from embodying that king, then perhaps the domain is actually the art studio, and that's what's protected, the art practice, the art studio, the time, the precious time that it takes to create. And the king in the light acts on principle, not ego, has a very clear sense of values, and actually practices humility. The king is thought to be a steward of the land, and that this is the legacy that is passed on from one generation of king to the next. I think that's where long live the king comes into play. So other symbols of the king is the throne. I think the throne is the seat of power. The throne is what elevates the king, bringing him closer to the gods. another symbol that we think of with the king is the sun, that everything revolves around the king. Everything revolves around the sun. And then there's the scepter. And the scepter is that which the king leans on, provides support. Well, this certainly is looking royally. Now, I've decided that this seems a little too big of a lighter spot here, so I want to soften that some. And while I'm painting that, I'm kind of watering down some paint here. I wanted to read this quote, and I'm not sure really where it comes from. It might be from King, Warrior, Magician, and Lover of the book written by Robert Moore and Douglas Gillette. But it says, a man who is accessing the king archetype, and remember, it's not necessarily a man, could certainly be a woman. I know plenty of female kings. A man who is accessing the king archetype understands his power and influence in the world increases as he empowers others to live to their fullest. Live to their fullest potential. So that's one of the light aspects of the king, is that the king will really increase the potential of others. It can even act as a mentor. So when the king archetype meets up with the artist archetype, they're acting on their principles, remembering that the principles of protection might be around studio practice, art tools used, medium, themes of works, that sort of thing. I thought about using this pretty beaded thing, like maybe up there, but you know, in the end, I really do tend to glop things up. So I want to be really mindful of that, but I do love these. And I think the king deserves bling. No pun intended. Just keep in mind that the king has this decisive quality. He brings legacy to his art, brings harmony to chaos, creates a very safe space for the viewer to actually contemplate. Very decisive about his choices and knows what he wants to convey. As a leader, the king may provide mentorship to emerging artists and help shape that artistic community within his kingdom. And absolutely, the king shares the riches with others and creates work that resonates on a very profound level. Long live the king.